Hello everyone and welcome back to another video by SimpliCode. I hope you guys are doing well. Today we'll take you through two projects based on React to improve your resume. Before we start, I hope the screen is clearly visible and the audio is fine. If yes, please type in yes, and if there are any issues, do let us know in the chat section so that we can resolve them. Great. I see a lot of positive responses in the chat section, so let's wait for some more minutes so that some more people can join us. Until then, let me tell you guys that we have regular updates on multiple programming videos. So if you are a programmer and if you want to learn something new, then consider getting subscribed to our YouTube channel and press that bell icon to never miss any updates from SimpliCode. Great, I think we can get started now. React is a JavaScript-based UI development library. Facebook and an open source developer community run it. Although React is a library rather than a language, it is widely used in web development. The library first appeared in May 2013 and is now one of the most commonly used front-end libraries for web development. React offers extensions for entire application architectural support, such as Flux and React Native, beyond mere UI. This video on ReactJS projects will help you build two fun applications using the library. As we all know, React is a widely used JavaScript library that is mainly used to build user interfaces for different applications. This video will help you understand why React is used so widely. So, first we'll build a calculator app and then we'll move on to build a Spotify clone. So without any further delay, let's hand over this session to our training experts.
This time we're going to introduce you another very interesting project using this JavaScript, HTML and CSS, so-called calculator application. So let's get started. Let me try to delete first those files which we really do not need it now. We delete those all. Yeah. Now I'll be creating a new folder now and give the name called calculator app. And in this calculator app, once again we need some new files which is called index.html, and we also need one more that is called app.css, and another one that is called app.js. So these three files required. Now first of all, I would start with index.html file where we'll be creating a template of my code. Now let me go and create this template, and here I have got body with me. Let's start with the first tag here that is called h1, and this h1 we are giving the name called calculator app. So that will be my h1 heading. After that we'll start working with the div tag. Now within this div I have to create lot many classes. I may not have lot many CSS classes, but we can give some classes here. So we can say class equal to container. Okay, so within this div tag we're going to create a table now because I want to organize it. So I'm starting with the table. Within this table, a tr tag, and within this tr tag I need a td. Now in this td I need few things: call span equal to 3 as a value, and here I want to offer the text box input type equal to text. Okay, input up to text, id equal to, give the name called result. That will be the final outcome while pressing all the different buttons. Id equal to result and class equal to screen. Remember, I haven't created those CSS classes, but we're giving some names, but later on we can utilize it while creating those CSS classes. Table data is getting closed. Let's get started with another td. Now inside this td we need another text box, input type equal to text, and here in this input type of text, sorry, I would like to better say button because I'll be having buttons. Okay, input type equal to button, value equal to C, and on click equal to, I may not have any function right now, But yes, I can create a function, but let me give some dummy name here. I'm saying clear screen. Okay, so that will be the function will get called. And after that, class equal to clear. Yeah, so this is my button tag. After this, the TD tag is getting closed. After the TD tag, the table row is also getting closed. After the table row, which is getting closed, we're going to start working with another table row. Okay, and in this table row, I'm going to create one more TD. So let's go and create another TD here. And inside this TD, I'll be having another button to be get created. So I'll just say, this is my another button now. Input equal to button, value equal to 1. On click equal to, I'll be calling another function called display. Okay, and inside this, we're giving the value called 1. Okay, and class equal to number. Class equal to number. And here, after that, the TD tag is getting closed. Okay, now we have to start another TD tag here. Okay, like that, we have to keep on creating the multiple buttons. So let me copy and paste another table data. Now here, again, value equal to 2, on click equal to display, give the value called 2, and class equal to what? Number. Like that, I'll keep on creating multiple buttons, but first check how it actually looks like it. Now I can see the buttons, like I can see 1, 2, 3, but yes, I'm going to create few more buttons, one after another. Okay, so I'll go here and create few more buttons. So this is where the table data is getting closed. Okay, I'll copy this and paste it again. So I have to create the button like in 3, 4, something like that. So after this 2, we're giving the value called 3. Yeah, I'll give the value called 3. So value equal to 2, value equal to 3, display 3. And then afterwards, just giving the value called forward slash. And here also we're going to give the value called forward slash. And here class equal to operator. Operator. After that, we have to give the value called 4 and then followed by 5, 6, 7. So here we give 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6. After 6, we're giving called minus. Okay. Once again, it will be what? Type of operator. Operator. Okay. After this minus, we'll be talking about called 7. Then we have to have 8. Okay. 9. Okay. After that, we're giving called plus and display plus class equal to operator. Operator. Okay. So here you can see the table data is getting closed, and here the table row is also getting closed. And after this table row, we can start working with another table row here. And after this table row, we can start working with again TD. Let me have this again. Inside this, I'll be giving the option called decimal, which is value equal to dot, and here we give the value called decimal. Decimal. Okay. Now display 0. So after giving this dot, it will basically take what? The value 0, which we haven't put now. We'll be talking about value called 0. So here the decimal value we have given it, TD is getting closed. Let me have the another one. 0, 0. So like that we have to give this now. After that we'll be once again taking this, and this time rather than giving this 0, we'll be using this call as a button, and value equal to on click equal to solve. Okay, and in this solve will not be passing anything. It will like a normal function, and class equal to equal. Okay, so table data is getting closed, so we will be using another table data now. So here it will be the button only. Okay, we will be using value equal to multiplication. Display asterisk, and here we'll be using operator. Okay, so table data is getting closed, table row is getting closed, table is also getting closed here. Okay, so your div tag is also getting closed here. Okay, that's it. Okay, so that's the only thing which we wanted to make. Let me try to refresh and check. Awesome. So we have got all those necessary calculator behavior which we wanted to reveal. Okay, now our next statement will be, once we are giving this C, then we have to call 1, 2, 3, and then forward slash followed by 4, 5, 6 will come down. Okay, so let me check whether we have used 6 or not. Okay, so we haven't used 6. So let me check here. 4, 5, 6. So let me go back here. 4, 5, 6. Let me copy this and paste it later on. Before minus. Six equal to number. Okay, so we're almost set now. So we are having this look and feel. In this we are giving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and after this we have a call minus and then plus related behavior. So we are all set now, and after that we'll be basically applying the CSS as well as the JavaScript look towards my code. Okay, thank you. Well everybody, we're all good to go now, but I just want to first check whether my this outlook is looking properly or not. See, what my expectation is, after 1, 2, 3 forward slash, I really want to bring 4, 5, 6 to the next, and then 7, 8, 9 and again forward slash, but I can think this is absolutely unorganized. So after this, when we say this forward slash which we have used after hyphen, okay, your TD is getting closed here. Okay, so here the TR I also want to close here. Okay, and after this TR I also want to start another TR here. Okay, so that I can put them into the another level now. So under this TR I can use this TD now. So after this minus, after 4, 5, 6 minus, once again I would like to start another table row here. Okay, so that it let's go to the next row. So here after TD we're closing this TR and starting another TR now. Okay, we're starting another TR. After that we talk about 7, 8, 9. Okay, plus, see here, talking about 7, 8, 9 plus, here the table row is getting closed and it is starting right now like this. See, that looks better now. Okay, but still few more things which I would like to make it even more organized, but that's not a problem. We will do it little later on. Okay, because you can see 8 is missing right now. So here 7, we copy this, equal to 8. Yeah, that looks better now. So now they are basically completely organized. So the moment I expect my application, so we have a call dot here, then 0, then equal to, and then we have a call multiplication. Okay, so looks better now. Now I just would like to perform the overall look and feel. So I need to go ahead and use what CSS, because without CSS I really can't utilize this in a proper way. So I have to start working with the CSS front now. In CSS front, how to start? First we will go back to my code, and here in my CSS we'll start working with font family. But before font family, I would like to start with the body part now. Body, background color, I'm using called teal. That looks nice. Okay, so I will be using this app.css in my HTML to see the look how it is being appeared right now. So in my index.html file, on the top under my head section, link, style sheet, okay. Now see, it looks better now. Going forward, in my CSS, we want to use some H1 color too. So here, we would like to use the H1 text align, center, color, white, margin top, we would like to use 50 pixels. This is for H1. Let's check. Perfect. So it is now coming in between. Next statement will be called screen. So we say dot screen. So in this screen, we use the background color gray, and after that border solid, black, and with 2 pixels. After that color white, font size medium. Next width, we are using this 100%. Then we talk about cursor. We'll be saying what the default cursor is. Okay. Then padding, we would like to say 10 pixels, and then margin, say auto. Then margin bottom, that I'll be using 10 pixels. So it is a proper alignment. Okay. Look, that's how exactly we want. That's for a screen where the exact outcome will be visible to me. And rest of the details will be showing you one by one. Now we'll be talking about called input. Okay. Input type equal to button. For input type equal to button. Okay. Input type equal to button of type what? Hover. The moment I hover on my button, I say background color change to what? White, or else I can say white smoke. Okay, and when the button is active, what I want, let me copy, input active button, and here I say active. In this color should be orange red, like this. You can see now how it is basically looking like it. Okay, active, the color will be like this. Okay, now we'll be talking about called operators. Operators should behave different. So I'm saying dot operator. In this operator, we are saying background color orange. Okay, then padding, I want 5 pixels. Okay, then I want color, that should be black. After this, I'm using called border. Sorry, that border, I'm using this called solid, and then black and 2 pixels. After this, width, I'm using 100%. Then height, we're using 40 pixels. Then cursor, it has to be pointed type. Okay, that's it. Let's check. Perfect. So they should turn back to what? To your orange color. And you can see the moment I take my cursor on, it turns to white. Perfect. And now those who are type number, I also want to change them. So for number, I want to say the same option. Padding, I want 5 pixels. Then I need height of type 40 pixels. Then I say color. It looks, I want to say called black. Then border. I want solid. Black and 2 pixels. Solid, black and 2 pixels. Then width, I would say 100%. And cursor, once again, point. That is for number. Let's check. Awesome. So they looks nice. Now we're left with few other type of options like a dot and equal to. Okay, that I'm talking about called decimal. For decimal, I need to have a different options with me. Okay, so let me try to copy this, paste it, and I say for decimal. So for decimal, background color will be light blue, padding 5 pixels, color black, border solid. Okay, black 2 pixels, width 100%, height 40 pixels, fine, and cursor pointer. Perfect. Okay, looks nice, but I have changed the color to light blue now. Now I talk about clear. Okay, now come back and say clear. Okay, in this color, background color is I'm changed to light salmon. Padding 5 pixels, color black, border same, width 100%, height 40 pixels, fine. So cursor, pointer, fine, margin, auto, and margin bottom 10 pixels. Let's check. Perfect. Now it looks beautiful. Okay. Now here, after giving these details, we're talking about called equal part, dot equal. So for dot equal also, I'm just copying the same. So give a call, background color, padding color, just change to light green. Light green, and after this, since it is equal, so we say padding 5 pixels is okay, color black, fine, border fine, width 100%, height 40 pixels, color and cursor pointers. Just I don't need to. It's for dot equal, and I want for container. Container. In this container, width I want 40%. Width 40%. Background color white. Okay. Now here padding is 15 pixels. So display block. So first of all we have call width. We say display block, which we're taking margin. Okay, in margin we are saying 100 pixels. Auto. Okay, now align cells equal to center. Okay, border radius which is saying 10 pixels. Okay, now we're saying box shadow. Box shadow 5 pixels. Black. And padding so these are the details I have it now. Okay, we have it. Background color we are taking it now. Align cell, display block, border radius, padding, and now padding 15 pixels we have given already. I don't need to give it again. Margin, okay, fine. Box shadow, let's try. Awesome. So it's looking beautiful now. Okay, so this is where exactly my application works like that. And table, when we talk about, here we're saying width 100%. Okay, that's it. Super. So it's now giving me the proper look of how my application should behave like it. Just see about the container what we have done. Width 40% we're taking, background color. Let's bring it below. Then align self, display block, okay, margin, okay, and border radius, and fine. So I think we're all good now. So that's it. So we'll try and implement the JavaScript part. Well, everyone, so our CSS file is ready, our HTML is ready. It's time to just go ahead and talk about my final portion, that is called JS part, where I want to basically perform some calculators. Now here I just say function display which takes var as in parameter and say document dot get element by id. Here I'm saying result, okay, dot value, okay, plus equal to var. Whatever we are adding it, just it basically try to apply calculation on the top of that. Okay, that is the function. After that, we have another function available here called function solve. Here in the solve, we just use the value called let x equal to document dot get element by id result, okay, dot value, dot value, okay, and say let y equal to perform the calculations. For that we'll be using one function called eval and type x as an parameter. Now the next statement will be again document dot get element by id result dot value equal to y. Okay. Now later on I'll like to use another function here. Function clear screen, and here we say document dot get element by id. Here we say result dot value equal to, like that. So clear screen, solve, and display, three functions are associated with me, and these three functions are the part of this JavaScript file which I'll be calling it at the end before the body tag get closed. So here script equal to app.js. That's it. Okay, let's try to execute now. Here 2, you can see the values. I will say plus 6 equal to 8. Absolutely clear. I say C is clear the screen. 6 divided by 2 equal to 3. Awesome. So friends, your calculator application is ready. Congratulations to all. So it is a very simplest form which we have developed. This is your HTML, which is a template for you. This is the CSS, which is your complete the area of like how the look and feel will look like in of this template beautification. And here last we have a JS, which is smaller logic but really meaningful. Okay.
If getting your learning started is half the battle, what if you could do that for free? Visit SkillUp by SimpliLearn. Click on the link in the description to know more.
Let's start with creating a simple demo on ReactJS, and we are going to create a simple application that will connect to an online music streaming service called Spotify, and we will call our application Music App. So let's get started. The first step is to first get the Node.js platform and server installed. To do that, let me go to Google and let's just type Node.js, and here is the website nodejs.org. There are two versions available, the LTS, which is the stable version, and the current. We'll prefer the stable, so we'll click on that, and you can see we have an option which is called save file. The moment this file is saved to the disk, we just need to double click on it and keep clicking on the next button to get it installed on our system. And we also have a documentation available here, so which explains most of the features of the Node platform, and there are binaries available for different OSs, Mac, Windows, etc. So you can select the right bitness, 32-bit, 64-bit, and the right OS, and then go ahead and download the specific version that suits your platform. And you can see here that there are different, there are also help files available that will allow you to go through the installation documents for Node.js installation on Linux, etc. So to start with, I'm opening up the command prompt, and here is where we're going to call the Node Package Manager. Using the Node Package Manager, which is pre-installed with your standard Node.js installation, we will initialize our React application. So we would say React-app, and we want to now go and create an application called Music App in this folder. So as a prerequisite for the demo, all we need to do is install Node.js from nodejs.org, the official website. Just download it and install it. And that's when you open the command prompt, you fire npm, which stands for Node Package Manager, init for initialize. React-app is a standard keyword to initialize and create a skeletal structure of a React.js application. And the name of the app is Music App. So we'll hit enter. We'll give this some time, and you can see it's started downloading the core React.js libraries, and it is attempting to create our application. So it's installing all the prerequisite packages and scripts that are required to initialize and create a new React.js application called Music App. Now, once this application is created, all we would require is an online editor. So you could use an offline or an on-premise editor as well. So any editor of your choice, it could be Atom or Sublime Text or WebStorm. And for this demo, we're going to use Visual Studio Code, which is a free editor available by Microsoft, and you can just Google for Visual Studio Code. Again, this is not Visual Studio Professional Edition, etc. that we use for building our C# or MVC based applications. This is a lightweight editor for building JavaScript based full applications. So while this installs, let's go and take a look at Visual Studio Code. So this is the Visual Studio Code editor, and this is the editor that we've installed directly, downloaded from visualstudiocode.com and installed it. And all we need to do is open up this folder that would be created with all the prerequisite files in it. We just say file open folder, and we would open that folder within our Visual Studio Code editor. So we'll give it a while until that application gets generated, and once it's created, we will again implement the component based design and architecture and the data flow between the components. And we'd also look at connecting to a live data source, which is a JSON set of characters that we would consume, which is a RESTful service. The set of music tracks exposed as a RESTful API endpoint by Spotify, which is a premium streaming service. We will connect to that, and we will look at accessing some of the music tracks on that website. Okay, so we've got the application created here. So let's minimize this, and we'll open up our editor. All we've got to say is file and open folder, and let me go to the React.js demo folder. So this is the music app that got created, and that's exactly what we're going to open up here. So we'll navigate to that folder. It's called music app. We'll select it and have it opened in our application. So you can see here we've got a node modules folder. This has all of the pre-installed packages that make up the React.js library. We've got a folder called public, which will have the index.html file. That's the root file that will launch. So this is the single page application that we typically create in React. You have a single page on which we're going to load multiple components. So that's the index.html, and then we could go and create our folder structure. Currently, if I open the source folder, we can see a single app.js file, and that basically is the file that has the source code in JavaScript for a single component, which we are interested in adding on to our page as of now. So we just have one component, which is the default root component. That's the app component, and it has its corresponding CSS file. And then we've got a public folder with the index.html file, which is going to be the root HTML file that launches when we run our application. So let's go right up here, and let's add a link to an additional file. So I'm going to link to another style sheet. Okay, so we'd say relationship is equal to style sheet, and the type is going to be text and CSS, and we will reference a file called reset.css, and this is a file that we'll look at adding up later on. It doesn't exist at this point in time, so we will connect this, and that's purely for styling purposes, so that we can have all of our CSS styles defined there. Next thing, I'll right click on the public folder. We'll create a new file. We'll name this file as reset.css. So that's going to be the CSS file that will have all of the CSS styling that we're going to apply. And I'm going to use a ready code snippet for the CSS code. So let me just, all I'll do is I'll just go and pick up a a ready CSS file that I can just go and use. If you look here, I have a set of CSS files that are created that we're just going to use within our application, and that will avoid us spending a lot of time on the styling, so that we can focus on our core concepts, which is actually learning how component-based architecture works and how do we set up components and have data communication between them in React. So here is a file called reset.css. Let me just fire up Notepad, and I'll just open up this file, copy up the text here, and I'm going to just paste it within my reset.css. And if you look at the code, very simple. It's all about styling. So we've got article, aside, etc. all HTML5 tags set up as display blocks, so they take up the entire width of the page. We've got some padding, margin, and font size, etc. defined. We've removed list styling for the unordered and ordered lists, specifying the line height for the body tag. So basically, just styling up tables, and so nothing to do with React here. It's just about simple CSS that we've added up, and now we need to actually go in and dive into creation of the components that we need. So let's right click on the source folder. So I'll select the source folder. We'll right click there, and that's where we're going to create a new folder which is called components. Okay, so this is the components folder now that's going to hold all of the components within it. Within the components folder, let me create another new folder, and I'm going to call it app. And this is exactly how we are expected to structure all of the code that we have. Now, I already have a CSS and an app.js, which are the root components that were added by default. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to move them within this folder called app. Okay, so there is a proper segregation of responsibility, and all of the code that deals with a particular component is all added into respective folders, and this really improves the maintainability of the application going forward. Now we'll need some images, and I'm just going to make use of some set of images that I've downloaded from the web, and here are the set of images that I have. So I'm just going to copy all of them, and we'll come to our music app, and we'll go into the components and app folder, and that's where we're going to add all of the files, and you've seen all of those image files getting added. So these are just icons and images we're going to use for our music tracks inside our application. Now let's move to the app.css file, and this is where we've actually got so the app.css file is the file that's going to style up all of the style rules that we've added into the root app component, and this is what we'll have to revamp. So I'll just get rid of this code, and we'll probably add something for the body tag, the HTML tag, and the root element. Let me say hash root, and let's set the height to 100%. Coming to all of the HTML across the page, we'll give it a font size of 10 pixels, and the H1 elements, let me give it a padding of 0.77 and 0. Let's set a background color, give it a background color. I'll just select some random color here that can be applied. Then we'll set up the text alignment, which is going to be the center of the page. We'll set up the font family. The font family is, and this is part of sans serif. What else do we add? Let's add up the font size, 1.88, and also the color. So again, these are standard HTML and CSS elements, so nothing really that has to be done that is specific to React here. So again, we are bringing in the highlight class. So there is a class called highlight that we will create later in the HTML view of this component, and we'll set this to a red RGB component. So combination of 46, 113, and 238. Okay, so that's pretty much done. Let's move on and also add up for the anchor tag. Let's add up some text decoration and set it to none, so that the anchor tags don't come up with those underlines. And of course, we'll provide a color of hash. Okay, so a white color there. Now coming to the H2 element. For the H2 element, let's have font family, and again I'm going to use the font family that we defined here, bracket, and we'll change this to probably 1.55. Okay, now coming to the app tag, let me just save this and create a copy of it. There was some content that I did delete, and I can simply go and make use of it. So I've just undone all of the deletion. So this is something that I can, if I can use something, I can just probably use it from the tag below. So let me start with a height here, and let's say the height of the header is 100% of the app, sorry, not header. Padding 0, 17%, 10%, 17%. The background, and I'm going to change that to background URL. So the background URL, or let's say the background image, will have a URL property. Okay, and that URL is going to be ./pg1.jpg. So that's the image that we've added some in the previous step. Let's also add background size. So we'll add background size and set it to cover. I'll also need a background position, set it to center. Let's have background repeat, which is set to no repeat, so that we don't have the image in a grid format. And then I would need this, so get rid of it. Let's take up the font family. We'll maintain the same font family. Let's use font weight. The font weight is going to be 500, and the color is going to be hash, so that's a white color. Then we come to .app.playlist. So that's going to be another class that we are going to use. But app-playlist is what we're going to name it. And let me say that the display should be flexible display, and we will justify the content to leave spaces in between. Alright, so that finishes that bit, and now let's write up a media query for the responsiveness of this page. So this is media for only screen, and max width is going to be 1020 pixels. Okay, and the class name that we'll provide later is obviously app playlist. So for this screen size, we would align all the items to the center, and we change the flex direction. Okay, so we seem to be good with the CSS for the app as of now, and that's the app.css that we created. Let me save everything. Okay, let's check for any kind of additional. So all free of errors, no errors now. Things are good in the app CSS, and it's time to move to the next step of building this application. Now we'll have to go and add up the code for the app.js file. So let's dive into the app.js file, and this is where we will actually need to go and add all of the code that is required for the app component. So all the code that's relevant to the app component, we are going to add up inside this specific component itself, which is going to be obviously the app.js file. So we have skeletal code, which is importing the React library, and let me get rid of the basic sample logo. We'll have app.css that's getting imported here. Besides that, a lot of other files that we'll have to get in. So let me import playlist, and these are the components that we'll create as we go forward, and we're going to get this from the playlist folder, and the component, the file is going to be called playlist, so we'll add that. Then we'll have to go and also import search bar. So what we're basically doing is we're going to split this app into different components. There's going to be one component that manages the playlist of all the tracks. One component will act as the search bar. So that's the search bar component that we're going to add. So searching for tracks will be managed by this. We'll have another component that we'll create that will get imported into the root app component, which is search results. So this is going to display the record set with the set of results as an outcome of the search criteria. So search results / search results. And finally, we'll go and import Spotify. That's the Spotify service from. So we'll create a utility folder which will hold the code that connects us to Spotify. So that's what we are adding up next. So all of the imports are done. One component that manages the search bar. So that's search bar, search results. Let me correct the spellings there. That's search results, that's Spotify, and playlist. So that's done. Now let's move on to the class that we're going to create here. So let's create a class app that goes and extends React.component. So that's going to be a ReactJS component. So that's a constructor. We discussed about props or properties and state management, and that's what we are implementing. We are using the super keyword as a best practice so that all the properties are initialized in the constructor, and also we pass the values up the chain to the super class, which is the root component class. Now we're going to initialize a variable called state that's going to manage the state, and we are interested in tracking our search results. So we'll have multiple results, so we'll store that as an array. The playlist would have different names, so we'll just call ours new playlist. That's the default name. And we will also store a list of tracks, which is going to be playlist tracks. So playlist tracks is going to be our list of tracks, and let's close this block. Okay, and this too is going to be initialized within the constructor, so we'll add it here. And now we need to do the binding. We discussed data binding, so let's look at creating a search variable which will hold this dot search dot bind and bind to the context of this very class. So we are passing this pointer. Then we'll create another variable called add track, which to this dot add track dot bind, and all this functionality is what we're going to add going forward. So right now we're just setting up the bindings. Then we'll have capability to remove a track, so we'll say remove track. So remove track equal to this dot remove track dot bind, and let's fix that. So, and all of this too is going to be initialized as part of the constructor, so that's where we're going to add it. Then we'll need to update the playlist name. So we'll need functionality that will help us to update the name of the playlist. So functionality that helps us to update the playlist name. So this dot update playlist name is equal to this dot update playlist name dot bind, and this is the pointer that we'll pass. I need to save the playlist, so this dot save playlist equal to this dot save playlist dot bind and pass this. And then I would also need to remove the track that has been searched for from the playlist. So remove track search equal to this dot remove track search and dot bind. And finally, one last function that executes all of these, which probably will bind to this context. So all the declarations are done in the constructor. Now we need to provide the definitions for all the methods that we actually have added here. So let me select this, tab inside, and let's start with the search function. So we'll define the search first. It takes some variable value that it searches on, and then I'm going to say Spotify dot search. I'm going to search for term dot then, and that's an observable. So the moment the search returns a value, it's going to call this callback function, and that's when we want to set the state, and we're going to set the state for search results to whatever is passed by the system. So the search results are going to be returned as a callback, and that's what we'll store as an updated state. Now coming to the add track method. So let's scroll up and we'll say add track, and this will take the track to be added. Let's declare a temporary variable called tracks equal to this dot the current state of all the tracks that are there in the playlist. Now if tracks dot find, I'm going to call the find method. So if we are able to find, which means that the track is already there in the playlist, then we would not want to add it. If it's not there in the playlist, that's when we would want to go and add it. The triple equal to is an equality operator that will check for both a value match and a match on the data type as well. Okay, so if the track is already saved, do nothing. If the track is not saved, just track the track ID, because that is the track that will have to be added. If it's already there, then just return. If it's not there, then we've got to go to this variable called tracks. We'll use the JavaScript method called push, and we will push the current track into this tracks array and then update the state. So we'll want to set the state of the playlist tracks, and this is how your state management that we discussed in detail is actually being practically implemented here. Okay, so the track has been added. Now let's talk about the remove track. So that's the remove track function, and that's the track that we want to remove. So let's let tracks equal to this dot state dot playlist tracks. Those are the set of current tracks that we have, and let track search, another temporary variable, equal to this dot the current state of the search results. Then let's take the tracks array equal to tracks dot filter. So filter is a JavaScript function that will again allow you to remove a certain value. Create a temporary variable called current track, use the lambda operator, and if the current track dot id is not equal to the track dot id, which means this particular track is not there in the list. Okay, so you need to remove that, and again I have a method called as unshift, which will actually get rid of the track in the array. And then we've got to, so we'll search whether that track is existing in the tracks array. If it is, then we simply want to remove it. If not, we do nothing. So we set the state. We need to update the state of the playlist because a track has been removed. So the playlist tracks will have to be updated with this tracks array. Okay, then we go for remove track search. That's the next method. That also will take a track as a parameter. Okay, here we are going to say let tracks, which is another temporary variable. We'll give it the current state of search results, and then we are going to say tracks equal to tracks dot filter current track dot id not be equal to the track dot id. And then this is where we would want to say this dot set state, and we'll pick up search results, and let's go and assign that to track. So that's the updated set of tracks after making that change. Let's remove this and correct it. Okay, so that's fine. So the remove track is now, the remove track and the remove track search is now in place. Let's add the these functions, which actually again takes track as a parameter. And here we'll say this dot add track. Okay, so it adds the track and then it removes the track from the search criteria. So the search component, which is managing searching of the tracks, that will go and remove it from there after adding the new track. So that's a combined operation we want to execute. Then I've got update playlist name, which will take the name of the track to update, and this dot set state, the playlist name is what we need to update with the name that is passed to this function. Then we've got to save playlists. So here let me create a constant variable. Constants are variables whose values will not frequently change. We'll take all the track URIs. Dot state dot playlist tracks will be dot map, create a temporary variable called track dot URI. So we actually want to go and now save this on Spotify. So that's the reason we'll access Spotify's save playlist method. This dot state dot playlist name comma track URIs, and if that is successful, we then go and do a callback. So that's the callback anonymous function, where we're going to say this dot set date, and the playlist name that we want to create on Spotify will be called new playlist. So that's the custom name that I want to provide, and the playlist tracks, define that. This closes here. Okay, so that's for the update on Spotify. Now here is where the render method is going to return the HTML. Now this HTML is the view, and React simplifies this by having the JavaScript and the HTML in the same file, so you can actually go and access the variables you've declared in the script directly in your HTML view and synchronize and bind the data together. So it helps from a maintainability perspective. So even though everything is in the same file, it's well classified and differentiated into different code blocks. So we'll add the anchor tag and we'll say href is HTTP localhost. So that's the default server port on which this application will run. Okay, and we want to give it a custom URL name of musical file. So the h1 terminates. We'll then say div class name equal to app. Within that, this is how we're going to inject our search bar. That's going to be the search bar component. Inject it here, and on search, so that's the custom event, we will call a method called search. So on search, we bind to a method called this.search. Then we'll open up another div. Here we'll have class name equal to app-playlist. And if you remember, that's exactly the CSS class name that we referred to in the CSS file. We have another component called search results that we're going to inject here, and that's going to be search results. Here search results will be equal to this.state.search results. So that's how we can actually go and bind. So that's simple data binding. The component is going to be displayed with the data bound. And if somebody says add, if I click on the add button for search results, do these. So it will add that new track to the playlist by calling binding to the do these function, and it will remove it from the search results text box. Then we have another component called playlist, and here the playlist tracks will be bound to this.state.playlist tracks. Okay, so on the top, if you look here, we started with defining all the function declarations in the constructor. Then we provided the function definitions. Okay, that's how. And this that we passed refers to the context of the current component itself. So whatever you put into the app component or into the respective component, those values will be then passed out here to these individual functions. Okay, so that's with the playlist. Couple of things we'll have to do is if somebody changes the name of the track. So on name change is going to be another custom event where we'll have to call this dot update playlist name, and we also have remove functionality. So to remove a track, we would say equal to this dot remove track on save equal to this dot save playlist. Okay, so that's done, and we close this. So we seem to be pretty much on track. The export app will make this all of these functions accessible across other components. It's very similar to the public access specifiers, etc., that you provide in other programming languages. So that's done. We've created our app component. Now let's create another folder under components, and we've got to define all our various components here. This folder is going to be for the search bar, so we'll name it search bar. We'll add two files within it, the search bar.css, okay, and another file that we'll need here is search bar.js. So that's in terms of the search bar. Let's start with the CSS file. So we'll start with first styling search bar. We will say that the display should be flex direction should be column. We want all the items to be aligned at the center, so that's align item center. Then we'll add up padding. So padding top is going to be 6.94 rem, and margin bottom is going to be 6.33 rem. All right, now let's add up for the search bar. So that's search bar. We'll add for the input element, we want the width to be 287 pixels, the padding to be 0.880, the border should be 1 pixel solid white. The border radius will give a slight rounded edge to give a web 3.0 look and feel, so we'll set up the border radius. Then we've got margin bottom, so we've got a bottom margin that we want to add up. Then we have color, So let's add up the color C3F. So that's the color black. Then let's add text alignment of center, and let's add up a font size of 1 rem. Okay, so that's how we've set this up. Let's add the search bar. Input is going to be, so if someone focuses, so focus is the got focus. So if someone clicks inside, so if the end user goes and clicks inside the text box, we change the outline to none. Okay, and so for the search bar, we are interested on input, and if the input is focus, so that's the event that we are looking for, and then we would have a button called search button. So on the search button, the cursor, we'll set it to pointer. So that's the cursor pointer. The width, we set it to 8.11 rem. The padding, we are going to set up to 0.77 rem and 0. The border radius, we'll set it to 54 pixels. So we get a slightly well-defined search button with a nice little border. Let's also add background color. #1db954. So that gives me a color. Then I've got my text alignment. Let's set that to center. Then we've got our font family. Let's set up the font family to the same standard font, AT, and it's a part of the sans serif family. Then we'll set up the font size to 0.833 rem. Correct this. And finally, we will need transition. So all of these are basic CSS properties. So that will add a slight transitional effect with a delay of that many milliseconds. So transition, background color, we've provided. What else? Let me scroll up. Let's also provide a border here. So we'll remove, in fact, let's remove the border. We would not want a border on the button, that would look odd. So I'll get rid of the border. And color, we'll specify as per our standard color that we've been using. Okay, so that's the color we've specified. And then I've got font weight of 500. Finally, we'll take the search button, and on the search button, we will register for the hover event. So if someone takes their mouse over the button, that's the hover event. In that case, if we hover around the button, we would want the background color to change, so it will appear to have a slight little glow there. A mouse pointer moves over the button. Okay, so that's the opacity and the RGB combination. So that completes the CSS file for the search bar, and we obviously now need to go and get the code in for our search bar component, and that's exactly what we are going to do next. So let's start with setting up the code for the search bar. First thing, let's go and import React from React. Next thing we would want to do is import the search bar .css file. Then we define our class called search bar, which extends React.component. We define our constructor, and we go and pass these parameters to the base class. We also define the state. We'll just need one variable here, which is the term to search for in the search bar. And then let's say this dot, we'll define a function called handle term change, which is going to be equal to this dot handle term change dot find. So that's going to be the first function. Then a function that will do the searching for us, which is this dot search. So that's the search function, and we'll have it bind to this. Then we've got this dot handle enter. So the moment we enter into that search text box, handle enter dot bind this. So the functions are ready. Now let's go for the first one, which is handle term change. We'll pass it a system defined keyword of event, this dot set state, and for the term we will use the event keyword. We will get the value that is there inside that text box the moment the search term the user has entered changes. So the search criteria changes, we trap the updated value. Then in the search function, we will update the local property props.onSearch. Okay, so we'll access the onSearch and pass it the updated term, and then we got the handle enter, on which we're also going to pass the system defined event keyword. So if there's any data flowing along with the event, we're interested in it. In this case, the data is the key code that the user is pressing. And if it is 13, that indicates that's the ASCII key code for the enter button. So if the enter is hit, then the user is completed entering the search criteria and we need to start searching. And that's where we write our render method that's going to render the HTML view, and we return the complete view here. So that's the view now that we want to return. Let's say div class name equal to search bar. Then on the input text box, we will use placeholder equal to enter song, album or artist that you want to search for. On change, on the on change event, the moment the term changes, we connect that to handle term change. We already have a function that manages that. And the moment keys are pressed and released, so on key up is where we would want to connect to this dot handle enter. Okay, and this is brace bracket that I'll have to put up here. So in the render function, we're going to return a value. I shouldn't forget to export the search bar. Okay, so that's what I want to export. So we've exported that. Okay, so at the end of this, what we've done is we've written our render method. We've written our div tag. Here is where we'll go and close the div tag. We've added an input, and here is where I'm going to add a button, provide a class name called search button, and the moment the end user clicks on the button, we're going to connect it to this dot search, and we close the button tag. Within the button tag search. So that completes the render function. So in the render function, again, let's run through all of what we've written. We started with extending React.component. We then added a constructor, passing props to the super class constructor. We created state. We set it to a value of term and null. So the state currently we defined as term. Then we said handle term changes, search and handle enter should be functions that we want to add. Then handle term changes we defined, search we defined, and handle enter we've also defined. Then we used render. Render we said is going to return to us the HTML that we've specified. Okay, we dumped all the HTML that we want this component to return to us. So on change and on key up are both two functions that or two events that we connected to, where we called handle term change and handle enter. Then we added a button where we registered for the click event and connected it to this dot search. So all the three functions that we had actually written. So two things we've completed now. In the app class, okay, if you look at the app class, we've actually defined a set of functions here that deal with the playlist and adding applications, etc. Adding tracks, removing tracks. Then we've created the search bar. Okay, so we saw that the search bar also, we have specified a set of functions, and all the functions that we defined, we have taken care to structure every component separately. So the search component is doing something completely different, which is managing the search bar. We have the core, the root app component, in which we have imported all of the other set of JavaScript classes that we are creating. And that's how the entire application is now structured. So, and that's the core concept when you're working with React, where you would actually have every separate block of code or every separate functionality handled in a different component altogether. So we've completed the search bar component as well. So two components done and two components good to go. So we've got to start up on the next set of components that we will need to build. And the next component is the track component that will manage individual tracks. So a new folder a new file called track.css and track.js. So that's going to manage the tracks for us. So let's start with .track. We would say display is flex, align items, center, border bottom, 1 pixel, solid, RGBA, 256, 256, 256, 0.8. That's the opacity. Then let's come to track action. So we'll use all of these classes when we write up the HTML view. We'll add a padding here of 0.5. We'll set up a font size of 1.05. Set up a transition color of 0.25s, border of 0 pixel, and a background color of RGBA 0000 color hash. So that's the color that we continue to use. Then we bring in track, another class, track action, and if we hover over this class, we want the RGB values change to 265, 265, 265, 5 is the last parameter. So that's the hover. Then we have track information. So track information is the next class that we're dealing with. We'll add the flex parameter first, display flex, and then flex direction is going to be column. Let's have justify content set up as center, and let's have height as 180 pixel. So that's track information. Let's have another track information and the h3 tags nested inside that. For all the h3 tags nested inside that, we'll need a margin bottom of 0.22 rem. Finally, let's have track information and paragraph tag. We'll have the font size of 0.83 rem and a font weight of 300 and a color as well that we'll add. So let's add up a color here, RGBA 256, 256, 256 and 0.8. Okay, so that's in terms of the CSS. And let's move to the track and we'll move into the JavaScript file. So let's move into, so let me take what we added in the search bar. I'll go to the track.js. This will change to track.css. Okay, the constructor, this will change to add track. So add track, change this to add track. This is remove track, change this to remove track, get rid of this. And that's going to be the add track function. And here we are going to say this dot props. So we'll modify this dot props dot on add, this dot props dot track. And then we have the remove track. So that's going to be the remove track function. This function is not required. So this dot props dot on remove, and this is the track that we would want to go and remove. We'll add up another function called render action. So this is going to be a function that we are defining called render action. And in this we'll just check if this dot props dot is remove. If this dot props dot is removal, so in that case we would want to return. So this is a view action method that we are adding, which is going to go and add this button with a class called as track action that we've already written the CSS for, and this button will actually get added via this render action function, and this dot remove track is what it's going to map to. Let's close this. This is going to bind to this specific function. So that's the closing button tag. Okay, so the closing button tag is what we've added there, and the binding is what we have done to this dot remove track. And we will terminate this here. So now the render action, let's also have the return here, and we just add up the button, and this is going to add track. So you can look at how the component is completely dynamic in nature. So we have two buttons that are going to be added. This button with a hyphen is going to remove the track. This button with a plus sign is going to add the track. And you can actually see how simply it was done in a render action function. So the render action function actually helped with checking that if on the value of the props, and if the user, depending on the action performed, you will actually be able to remove a track or add a track from the existing playlist. Okay, and then the class name here is now going to be track. The class name for the enclosing div inside it. So let me get rid of this. The class name for the enclosing div here is going to be track-information. Within it, we'll add h3. We'll bind to this dot props dot track dot name. So the name of the track is going to get bound here. Then in the paragraph, we will bind to this dot props dot track dot artist, and with some gap, this dot props dot track dot album. So that's what we've data bound to. And then let me add an iframe. An iframe allows us to very easily inject some content into the page within a small embedded window. The source parameter of the frame is going to be https open dot. So here I'm connecting to the Spotify stream, spotify.com/embed/track, and close this. So that's the Spotify stream that we are going to connect to, and this dot props dot track dot id. So that's the track ID. The width is going to be 300. The height parameter, the height parameter is going to be 80 of the iframe, and the frame border is going to be 0, and the allow transparency, so that's the opacity, we'll say true. Let's add allow encrypted media. So if Spotify has encrypted media, that also would be embedded here, and we can also have the title set to preview. So that's with the iframe. Okay, at the bottom is where we would want to, so this could be an empty element, and we can close it right around here, so we wouldn't need this part. And then here I'm just going to say this dot render action. So we call the render action method, which will actually give us plus minus button to add and remove new element. Okay, and that's what we can actually go and add up there. So let's check now whether all that we've done is good to go. Fine, so everything looks good in terms of the track component now, and we have all of the functions in place. It's now time to jump into the next component that we would require after the track component, and that's going to be the track list. So this is going to be a list component that will comprise of a list of tracks inside it. So we'll create a new folder, call this track list, and that's going to have track list CSS, and it's going to have tracklist.js. So that's the track list component now, which we're going to go ahead and use. And the CSS, we don't need much, so let's just say track list, and we just provide a width of 100%. Okay, that's all we'll need in the CSS. So let me add this in the CSS file, save this, and come to the JS file now, which is going to have the track list code that we will need to add up. So here again, I'm going to say import React from React. We'd also want to import tracklist.css, and we'd also want to go and get track, because this component is going to be made up of a collection of tracks, individual tracks. So we want to get this from track/track, and we'll define class track list, which is going to go and extend react.component. We just need the render method here because this just needs to go. It does not really have any state of itself. It simply goes and returns a list of individual tracks. So this class name is going to be track list, and we'll bind to this props.tracks.map, create a temporary variable, and this will go and return the track component, which is going to bind to individual track data. The key is going to be track.id. So the key is going to be track.id, and on adding a new track, we want to bind to this properties and we already have onAdd defined, so that's what we connect to. We add up my brace bracket here. Okay, and then we would also need is removal equal to this props.is removal, and the on remove will to this props.on remove. So that's for the track removal. And so we've got our track list. Oh yes, we'll have to go and also close the div tag correctly, and also we'll need to go and export. So we'll have to go and export the track list. So we've got one more component done, which is track lists, and let's move on to the next component now. So we've got app, which is root. We've got the search bar that takes care of entering the search criteria. We've got individual tracks that are searched and returned, and we've got a track list that manages a set of track records. So the track is more relevant to the playlist, and then we've got the search results also to manage. Once we search for some set of tracks, so we'll add a new folder which manages search results, and this is going to have search results.css, and it's going to have search results.js. Okay, so we need a search results.css and JS, and here in the CSS file we'll keep it simple for the search results. So we'll say search results. We'll set up the width of 50%. We'll set up the height of 950 pixels. We'll say overflow Y is scroll. We'll say padding is 0.88 rem. Background color will be RGBA 95 23 23 0.7, and we will use the box model. So we'll provide a shadow, dropping shadow of 0, 4 pixels, 2 pixels, 2 pixels, hash. And then let's add a scroll bar. So WebKit and MOZ are the constants specific to Mozilla and Chrome browsers. So they target certain animated features, etc., or properties that are specific to those individual browsers. And that's the reason we use those constants. And then we'll also add a media query that if it goes with a max width 1020 pixels, in that case dot search results width is 90% with a margin bottom of 2 rem. Okay, so forgot to add the hyphen, so it's hyphen WebKit scroll bar 0 pixel width, and we've set transparent background. So that's about it with the CSS. I need to get to the JS file. Now let's move to the search results JS file, and that's where we will now have to go and add up the component code for search results. And let me pick this up from track list, add it up here. This will be search results, and the results will return to us a list of tracks. So we'll have to get track list. This will be track list, and I'm just going to return class name will also be search results. So that's the component, and this is going to export out search results, so it's accessible across other components. Then we've got h2 with results. Let's go and create track list with a set of tracks, and we will bind it to this dot props dot search results. And on the on add, we are going to bind to this dot props dot on add. So we already have that. So that basically completes search results, and that leaves us with the last component, which is going to manage the playlist for us. So we'll add up a new folder in components, and that's going to be playlist. And within that, we will have a playlist.css and a playlist.js. So that's our playlist component now that we're going to work with. And the playlist component is, we'll first set up the CSS that we will need to add up to the playlist, and I'm just going to pick that up from my code snippet. So that's my playlist, and let me get all of that CSS here. So that's just a CSS for the playlist, nothing to do with React, again pure CSS. Let me get into the JS file, and that's where we will need to go and add all of our component code. So again, let me go to the track.js, the track list rather. Let me get this and add it out here. We'll make some small changes. This is going to be playlist. I need to import the track list because the playlist is going to contain a list of tracks. This is going to be playlist, and let me here, this will be playlist, and we'll leave this for later. Okay, let me also get the constructor in. So we'll add up the constructor here, and just one function that we will need here, which is handle name change. If I need to change the name of the playlist, so handle name change, and that's exactly the function that we will need to write code for. So that's the event, and this dot props dot on name change, that's when we'll say event dot target dot value. So we get the updated playlist name. Coming to the render, we'll now need the input. Input is going to be on change equal to this dot handle name change. The default value we have already provided with a hard-coded value, which is new playlist. So that's the default value. If not provided, then we'll just pick up the default value. Then we've got track list. So track list is what I will add. The tracks I'm going to bind to this dot props dot playlist tracks. So we're going to bind this to playlist tracks, and here we will say is removal equal to true, and on remove equal to, we'll bind that to this dot props dot on remove. Finally, we'll need a button. We will use class name equal to playlist dash save. That's what we've added in the CSS. Click equal to this dot props dot on save, and here we're going to say save to Spotify. So that's with the playlist, and yes, we need to go and export playlist and not track list. Now we'll need to do a quick lookup in Spotify. So let's go to this website called developer.spotify.com, and once we sign in and create an ID, it takes us to our dashboard. That's where we can create a sample application. The name of the application will be musico file. Okay, and we'll say that we are building some kind of desktop app, for example, for which we want to connect this to. And we'll also need to provide, so we'll say next, refresh the dashboard. Oh, it's asking me for a login. So let me log in once more. So moment I log in, that's going to be description. And I'll say maybe this is why I need it. I'll say no, not commercial integration. Agree with the terms and conditions, and we will say submit. And that's the application that has got created. And now I can say edit settings, and the redirect URL here is what is important. So it should accept connections from HTTP localhost 3000. That's the port on which we will host our application. Okay, and we'll say save. Okay, so that's now there's a client ID that is generated here for my app, which is unique. So I'll just copy that up. Let me come up to my application. Under the source folder, I'm going to add a new folder called util, and under that a new file called spotify.js. So we will start with adding our code to the spotify.js file that we've just created as a new file within the newly created util folder. The first line of code is going to define a client ID variable that equates to the client ID that we will generate on Spotify. So this is going to be the Spotify generated client ID, which is a unique ID associated for the developer to connect to the Spotify API. And we will look at the source of that as we go through the demo. The next variable that we'll create is the redirect URL, or let's call it redirect URI, and that will equate to localhost 3000, which is the port. And we'll create another variable called the access token. Let's also create another constant variable called Spotify, and this will work like a function expression. So we'll equate it to a function called getAccessToken, and we will say if access token is true, then return the access token. Now let's declare a constant variable called access token match, which will be equal to window.location.href.match, and we will say this is equal to access token, which will be equal to, and we will give a regex expression to do a pattern match ampersand, so that we can actually get into the URL and extract the token information from that, and hence the pattern match is crucial here. Another constant variable called expires in match equal to window.location.href.match. Here we will read the expiry information using another regex expression from the URL ampersand asterisk. So that's the second constant variable we've created. Now we will say if access token match and expires in match. In that case, the access token should be equal to access token match of 1. Then we create a variable called expires in equal to, we'll do a typecast to number, and we will take the first parameter from the expires in match. That's done. Then we will say window.setTimeout, and we're going to say access token equal to comma expires in multiplied by 1000. Then we will say window.history.pushState, and we will say access token. We'll pass the second parameter as null, the last parameter as slash, and close this, and we will return access token. Else we will say const access URL equal to https accounts.spotify.com/authorize client underscore ID equal to $client ID ampersand response type equal to token ampersand scope equal to playlist dash modify. So we are actually building the URL that will now get generated. So we'll say modified dash public and redirect URL equal to $redirect URI. So we have constructed the URL now that will go out and get generated in the browser, and here we are going to say window.location equal to access URL. Then we'll add the search criteria function which accepts a term as a parameter to search on. Here we will say constant access token equal to Spotify dot get access token. So we get a reference to the same access token. Return, we call the fetch function, and we're going to pass https api dot spotify.com /v1 /search question mark. That's the query string that we will add. Type equal to track and ampersand g equal to dollar, and we will pass term, comma. As the header information, we will need to pass the authorization, where we will say that the bearer is dollar access token dot then response return response dot JSON dot then. So the return of this function, once it completes, we will then call the next function, so JSON response, and then we will say return response dot JSON. After that, another then block, so we'll now say JSON response, and if not JSON response dot tracks, in that case we will return an empty array, else we will return JSON response dot tracks dot items dot, and we will pass, we'll create track as a variable with a lambda expression, and we'll create a temporary JSON object with ID, and that's where we want to associate track.id that was returned as the search result. The name is going to be associated with track.name. The artist is going to be associated with track.artist of 0.name. The album is going to be track.album.name, and the URI we will equate track.uri. So that completes this block. We'll open the next, and this will be the save playlist, which will take the name and the track URIs, and here we will check if not name or not track URIs dot length. In that case, we simply return out of the code, and then we declare a constant variable called access token, which will be equal to Spotify dot get access token. So we get a reference to the access token. We then declare headers, authorization bearer is going to be dollar access token, and we'll create a user ID, and now we will return the fetch result, where we will pass https api.spotify.com /v1/me. So that's the URL, comma, headers will be the header information. Then we call the then function, declare response as a variable, use the lambda expression, and access response.json. We use the then block to declare JSON response. Here we say user ID equal to JSON response.id, and then we return fetch https api.spotify.com /v1/users/ $of user ID /playlist. So this is how we've constructed the URLs manually. Here we will assign headers to the headers variable. We'll assign method as post, so the data is sent as part of the body and not as part of the URL. And as the body, we will say JSON.stringify to convert this parameter name, and then we will generate a response variable to response.json, and then we'll create JSON response with the lambda operation. We'll create a constant playlist ID, which is equal to JSON response.id. We will return fetch https api.spotify.com v1 users $user ID /playlist/$. Again, we are constructing the URL. So playlist ID will be replaced here. Then we will say tracks, and close this comma, and here again we will say headers would equate to the headers variable, be constant headers, and this close here. Okay, everything fixed now. So here we are going to say headers should equate to headers, and the method is going to be post, and the body is going to be JSON.stringify URIs, track URIs, and we close this, we close this block, we close this block, and we close this block. So that completes our code. Of course, one more thing we'll have to do, which is export this class out. So export default Spotify. And that completes the code for the Spotify.js, which is part of our utils class. So let's move on now to the next step. So here is the client ID that we'll have to exactly match. So I'll copy this client ID and provide it here. So that's the client ID that we actually need, and we could also store it out here. So that's the client ID, and that's the redirect URL that we've also defined there, and we just create an access token. If the access token is true, we return access token. So the access token is something that we are going to do a match from the moment we try and connect with this particular URL, and you can look here that this is the access URL that we are trying to connect with, okay, with the client ID and postfixed with the redirect URL, right? And then I've got a simple search function which returns an observable. So we try to fetch data using the search term that we provided. Okay, we try to fetch data using the search term provided. If we are successful, we get a response of the data, and accordingly we'll iterate over the JSON response and get a list of tracks out of it and do a mapping of this JSON object to the track ID, name, artist information, album name, etc. And here just like a data access layer, very similar to a data access layer, we've got a save function which will save this data to Spotify as well. So I've got a save playlist and I've got search. So these are the two functions which will go and connect to the Spotify service by using this client ID, and it will allow me to access that information in terms of returning a stream of JSON data, and will then allow me to go ahead and push that JSON data into our application. So now we'll actually need to start up the application. So I'll go to the terminal, and rather let me go to view and bring out the terminal. So this is the integrated terminal that's there in the tool, and it just opens PowerShell from which you can actually fire your commands. So I'm going to say node package manager npm start to actually start up this application. So that's going to do a full compile, and so we will fire this up, give access. So I'll need to grant access to that port 3000. Let's give it time to run. And that's the app now that you can actually see here. So this is the search bar that we actually had. Okay, then we had the results, we had the playlist. Now the results is going to consist of a set of tracks which are maintained by the track list, and then you can take individual tracks with the plus and minus button and add them into the playlist. Okay, so that's how it's typically going to work. Okay, so as you can view here, I'm just going to search for an artist, and we'll click on the search button. It goes to Spotify, tries to connect there, and says that I need to agree to the terms and conditions, and I've just agreed to that. So the very fact that it actually gave us a confirmation link the moment we tried to connect and execute our application, that's proof enough that it actually went and connected to the service there and tried to return a value to us. So this is what we did. We just added an artist, we said search, and you can see now it's successfully connected. I've got a list of tracks available from this artist, and you can see the plus buttons getting added on the fly. So that was the render action. These are buttons that got added onto this list of tracks dynamically the moment the search results returned a value. So I can click on this plus sign, and you can see that the track gets added to the playlist. Okay, as and when I click here. So I've added a couple of tracks If I go back to my dashboard of my musicophile application and that I've created here in the developers portal of Spotify on developers.spotify.com, it's blank. So now I'm going to click on save to Spotify, okay, and that clears the playlist. So let me come here, and now when I come out here, we saw that it actually got successfully connected out here. Now I'll have to log in to, so this was the development app that we actually created on the developers portal of Spotify. Now we will go to spotify.com. So I'll just go to the Spotify website, and it says, do you want to launch the web player and all that? So let me click on that. So it just launches, and can you see here, this is the new playlist that just got added, right? And there were 4 songs that had actually added to the playlist, and you can see here those 4 songs have got added out here. Okay, so I can go here and I can delete this playlist and say I want to delete it. Okay, so there's no playlist now. I'll go back here, I'll add 2 tracks, and I'll say save to Spotify. So that's how you actually saw that the new playlist, you can see the new playlist has come back here. Okay, and that's the playlist. The playlist has got generated again, and that's the new playlist that got created. And we deleted it, but it still got created again, and that indicates the connectivity that we successfully created with this React app. And the core concept of the React app was breaking it down into components, which is the search component. Then we created the track component. We created the track list to maintain a list of tracks. Then we created the search results, which will generate a list of results which further contains a track list. And this is the embedded iframe which gave us the response, which is scrollable here. And you can see that the iframes we created allowed us to scroll this with this embedded web page inside the iframe container. So with that, I hope we've been successful with explaining the concept of component-based design and architecture with React, and how important it is to create individual components, and the benefit of that being that you can isolate change requests to a certain component. You can promote reusability. Wherever you want the same feature to be implemented on the page, you can just inject that same component, and the same implementation and the same features can be reused. So it promotes reusability, it promotes flexibility to change, it isolates your change request to single components, preventing the massive effort of recompiling and retesting the entire application as a whole.
So with that, we have come to the end of this session. I hope you guys must have understood why React is used so widely. If you have any questions related to today's session, then please put them down in the comments below, and our team of experts will definitely help you at the earliest. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to stay tuned for more from SimpliCode.